a conversation around that and how we could actually put more funding towards it, or maybe get grant dollars, and a process in place where we could combat it more. I don't care if the whole city looks gray. I just want to have an answer for the graffiti.
Okay.
So I don't mind talking offline about how we can, attack that. I don't know what the answer is to that. I do know that it is expensive to constantly overpaint. But, I just want to see that we have a plan in place for sure. Because I've received calls from even East Point, if you can believe that. So anyway, just want to say thank you. It's on the last few slides, I did see something that goodness, and I should have written it down as you were speaking. But the pathway, PAD. So I see that you would like to create a pathway to PAD, and I was looking throughout the presentation and hoping that we would touch on that, because I'm always asking the same question. We have issues with policing alternatives 24/7. So it just can't be during business hours. We've got to figure out a way for PAD to actually be open on the weekends and after 7 o'clock. Or the partnership isn't whole. And we're actually funding in a whole way. So we need to do, and I don't even know if that is in our purview to make sure that they have a pathway. I think that we should, I don't know, maybe it's a procurement kind of thing where we partner with companies and they can bid on it that really do operate 7 days a week. I don't know what the answer is to that either, but I definitely want to put that top of mind for us as well. Okay.
Sounds good, and thank you.
Thank you
for your
very
kind
much.
comments. And graffiti, we'll work with the department to come up with a solution or pathway for that.
Yeah.
And then for PAD, I would defer it to the administration, in procurement, but we'll work on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Good. I just want to reiterate the comments from my colleague, just thanking you and your team for hard work and dedication. I know it can seem somewhat like a thankless job, and so I see the work, I see the reports, so just wanted to thank you all for that. One question I did have, you had some aggressive hiring and recruitment goals. What efforts are you taking? Are you working with our HR commissioner, and how can council be supportive of those efforts?
Yes, so Department of Human Resources have been very great to us. They have helped us accelerate our onboarding and AIM as well. So there are a few steps that we can sort of bypass now to onboard fairly quickly. And so what we did was, after we assessed what we needed, we met with our HR business resource manager, and they sort of helped us come up with a strategy of onboarding. And the mayor's office has been supportive as well. So, and we've seen it much easier, right? It doesn't take long at all to onboard. But at this time, we don't need any support, but I know I can always call on you, and I do thank you for all your support and just being there for our team.
Thank you. And then, I don't know if maybe I'm not as smart as my colleagues up here, but I'm somewhat active on social media. And so I see the tags, I see the responses from your team, especially on Twitter and Facebook. But one thing, and I'm not sure how we accomplish this, is sometimes I feel like those cases get lost to my team in my office. And so I don't know if there's a way that we can some kind of way get either a report or a way to follow up on those requests, just so that we know that we aren't, doubling up on those efforts, because we may see them and then I see that your team has responded. So I just wonder if there's some kind of way we could possibly get a report on those.
Yes, so we'll make sure to add that to you all's SharePoint and make sure you get that update from our team of what we have taken in or received via online, and then the resolve of it as well.
Okay. Well, again, thank you to you and your team. We appreciate it.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair.
Okay, well, my turn. I want to just convey the experience I often have from constituents who let me know how great their experience with 311 was. I get that an awful lot. not always, but it's most of the time, that is the feedback. So
Thank you for
please
sharing.
pass that along. I'm sure you don't
I will.
get that as much as we do.
Thank you.
So good report, a lot of obvious progress. I'm kind of curious, some of your back office feedback stats weren't quite as rosy as some of the other categories. Could you get into that a little bit?
Yes.
What you think the problem is?
So we started tracking that recently because that was something we omitted in previous reports. And we just hired we just promoted a new manager to that role. So she's getting up to speed. But my next report will be it'll be a deep dive into that area. But we just wanted to provide a high level overview of what we're getting and how much they bring in each month.
Well, one thing I really like about this report that's not evident in all quarterly reports is you seem to have a much better appetite to take a kind of an unflinching look in the mirror and report the results. And so
Yeah,
that's great when you can show constant improvement, which you are doing. But I think the only way to create constant improvement is to, put an organization to that level of self-testing. So
I agree.
good for you.
Thank you. We had to take a look in the mirror, and we had to hold ourselves accountable as well, right? So, and we love the work we do, and we want to make sure our customers feel the impact of that, right? And we take this job seriously. So we want to make sure that as we come before you and our customers that we're being transparent. And I want to just thank the departments because they have been by our side, and it really feels like one Atlanta. So, I thank them as well because it takes all of us to do this.
All right, if there's nothing else, we cannot conduct any further business until we have a fourth, which would establish our quorum. We are hopeful that someone will be here to fulfill that role, and maybe in 25 minutes. So we can't officially recess, but I'm told via the parliamentarian that by virtue of unanimous consent of all members present, that we can follow that course, and we will reconvene and officially start the meeting ASAP. So let's follow that course, colleagues. Keep close at hand, and I profusely apologize for the inconvenience. Thank you.
You should have brought it.
All right. This is the Finance and Executive Committee meeting, take two. We've already introduced ourselves, so I'm going to officially call the meeting to order, and I will make a motion to approve the agenda, second by Ms. Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote when you're ready.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Agenda's been approved. I will now make a motion to read to approve the minutes, which you've all carefully read, second by Ms. Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, thank you. Public comment, do we have any?
No public comment, Mr. Chair.
Moving right along, we've done our presentation under communications. Item G, we do have 23C5080, a communication from Mayor Andre Dickens appointing Miss Angie Walton Esquire to serve as a procurement appeals hearing officer on behalf of the City of Atlanta. The appointment is for a term of 2 years, and she is here. Come on up to the mic. Glad to have you. Thank you in advance for your service. Please tell us a little about yourself and your interest in this position.
Sure. First of all, I want to say thank you to Mayor Dickens and his office for even considering me for this position, and thank you all for allowing me to come before you here today. My name is Angie Walton, and I am Georgia born and bred. I went to Mercer University for my bachelor's degree, and I received my law degree from University of Georgia, so I am a law dog, and I have been practicing law in the greater Atlanta area in various aspects for now going on 23 years. This October 24th at about 2 o'clock. I do keep up with it. I have been in private practice for most of my career. When I first graduated from law school, I did do larger firm defense work, employment litigation, but I am a sole practitioner involved in all phases of civil and some criminal litigation, but I spend my days in trial. And as I've moved forward in my career, I'm trying to back off that a little bit, but I'm also a registered arbitrator and mediator. So I like to resolve conflict. And so when I initially submitted my resume, I gave some thought as to how I might be able to serve the city and help others. And I think appeals procurement officer would be a good fit, and that I can serve the city and sit in a position of neutrality and help try to resolve some of the issues that may come before the city. I do have an understanding of how procurement works. In another life, I did write responses to RFPs on a federal level to the Department of HUD, and I used to help individuals or companies secure 7 to 8 figure contracts for 5 to 10 year terms. So I am familiar with the process and how it goes and some of the issues that can come up in the bidding process. So I am just here to serve at the council's leisure and to be a neutral party and to do whatever it is I need to do to help the process along.
Well, you are fantastically qualified, and we're lucky to have you. Questions, comments? Motion to approve by Overstreet, second by Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays.
Right, the ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Next is a communication, 23C5085, communication from Ms. Danielle Hampton, Chair of the Audit Committee, submitting the performance audit report for business licenses. The request from them is to hold this. I'll make that motion. Second by Bakhtiari. Let's open the motion. Open the vote on the motion to hold.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. And Ms. Lindo, would you do the honors and get us through the consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair. First item is item number 3. That's 23-0-1409. This is an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the Capital Finance Fund budget and the fiscal year 2024 Department of City Planning General Fund budget by transferring an amount not to exceed $1,150,000.00 from the Capital Finance Fund to the fiscal year 2024 Department of City Planning General Fund to fund building inspections and permitting services and for other purposes. Item number 4 is 23-0-1410. This is an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor as designee to enter into amendment number 2 2022 for contract number listed herein, Contract Project Management Software System, on behalf of the Department of City Planning and the Department of Transportation with eBuilder, Inc., to extend the term of the agreement by 1 year through May 30th, 2024, in an amount not to exceed $229,692.70 to be effective retroactively from May 31st, 2023, to add 1 year renewal option to authorize reinstatement of the contract as of May 31st, 2023, and to ratify all contracts taken by the city since May 31st, 2023, and for other purposes. Item number 5 is 2030-1411. This is an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor as designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into an art easement agreement with Ackerman and Company for the location and installation of a fountain sculpture in an area consisting of approximately 25 square feet located in land lot numbers listed herein of the 14th District of Fulton County, Georgia, and for other purposes. Item number 6 is 2030-1412. This is an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor as designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to waive the competitive source selection requirements contained in Article 10 of the Procurement Code to allow the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs to enter into agreements with specifically curated performers, artists, and sponsors for the 2023 Elevate Public Art Festival in Atlanta, and directing that all festival revenues and expenses are deposited and expended from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes. And number 7 is 2030-1413. This is an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation to correct ordinance number 19-01175 adopted by the Atlanta City Council on May 6, 2019, and approved by operation of law on May 15, 2019, by removing the incorrect funding source and replacing it with the correct funding source and for other purposes. Item number 8 is 2030-1414. This is an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to pay all outstanding invoices to Stewart Brothers, Inc. for work completed under task order number listed herein, Transportation and Infrastructure Construction Services, Small, on behalf of the Department of Transportation, in accordance with Section 2-1163 of the Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, in amount not to exceed $251,150. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from various fund, department, organizations, and account numbers listed herein. Item number 9 is 2030-1416. This is an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee amending certain terms set forth in the Series 2018 Bond Ordinance number 18. Ordinance 18-0-1664, adopted by the Atlanta City Council on November 19, 2018, and approved by operation of law on November 28, 2018, which ordinance supplemented the Master Bond Ordinance of the Atlanta City Council, Ordinance number 99-0-0399, adopted on March 31st, 1999, and related to the City of Atlanta water and wastewater system to, among other things, amend the environmental covenants and performance payment agreement dated January 31st, 2019, to provide for an extended performance payment due date related to the City of Atlanta water and wastewater environmental impact subordinate lien revenue bonds, Series 2018, and authorize the execution, delivery, and performance of a First Amendment to the Environmental Covenants and Performance Payment Agreement, authorize notice of the adoption of this 14 supplemental bond ordinance to holders of the Series 2018 D bonds and certain credit providers and for other purposes.
Thank you. Those being first reads, they'll be taken up in our next sitting. Now we're on to regular agenda. Item I, ordinances for second reading, first of which is 2030-1369. This is an ordinance by Finance Exec to ratify services rendered in connection with the agreement listed here, Risk Management Information System with Origami Risk LLC, beginning June 23rd of this year, and authorize the mayor on his or his designee to execute the First Amendment to the agreement on behalf of the Department of Finance, retroactively effective June 23rd, 2023, on a month-to-month basis for a period not to exceed 12 months in the amount not to exceed $212,795. All contract work to be charged to and paid from, et cetera. Mr. Deloach, are you presenting? Is anyone presenting? You can give it a go, or we can move on.
Well,
We can come back to it.
yeah, no, I have a little bit of idea on this particular contract. So this is a contract that is for the risk management system. We are actually on the street we just received a prep package, and we will be issuing an RFP. And by virtue of this legislation, we are asking for a month-to-month till the RFP is complete.
And here's Mr. Deloach, and by the way,
You can call me Mr.
did-
Deloach. You can call me,
well, you did answer the question I had. So,
Okay.
About it. So thank you, Mr. Deloach. Anything you'd like to add?
No, I caught the last end of it, but like I said, it's a month-to-month agreement. And
Talking to the mic, would you, Jerry?
it's a month-to-month agreement, and we have a trigger package already in DOP pending, and so the new RFP should hit the streets within the next 30 days.
Questions or comments? I'll move approval.
Second.
Second by Winston. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. 23-01370 is an ordinance by Finance Exec authorizing the CFO to create and establish a new department and org for the intergovernmental payments to the Georgia Superior Court Clerks Cooperative Authority, the Fulton County Clerk of Superior Court and Magistrate Courts, and the DeKalb County Clerk of Superior Court for the purpose of making payments for filing fees, subscription costs, and other costs associated with undertaking court filings and real estate searches, and transfer from and to appropriations an amount not to exceed $20,000 in fiscal 24 to authorize the CFO to make payments to the Georgia Superior Court Clerks Cooperative Authority escrow account and the Fulton County Clerk of Superior and Magistrate Courts and the DeKalb County Clerk of Superior Court for filing fees, subscription costs, and other costs associated with the undertaking of court filings and real estate searches and for other purposes. And Mr. Davis, I am showing you. There you are.
Good afternoon, Lawrence Davis, Jr., Revenue Chief for the Office of Revenue. As stated, we are wanting to establish an account to put in effect a escrow account, which will allow us to do e-filing, as that is going to be the new method of going now. Whereas right now we've been taking it by in person. And so this will allow us to now do e-filing, allow us to do the property searches online, as well as to deal with the subscription for the 2 different counties as well as the authority.
Sounds like a huge improvement.
It is a very huge improvement.
Questions or comments? Motion?
Second.
I'll make a motion, seconded by Winston, to approve.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
Item 12 is 23-01371. This is an ordinance by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor to enter into a lease agreement with the Georgia Building Authority for 50 parking spaces in a certain parking garage located at 90 Central Avenue here in Fulton County in Atlanta, commencing retroactively on March 3rd of 2023 and expiring June 30th of 2024, authorizing a base rent rate not to exceed $4,000 for the term of March 3, 2023 through June 30th of the same year. For the term of July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, the base rate shall not exceed a base rate of $12,000 for the parking spaces, authorizing the expenditure to be charged to and paid from the accounts as follows, the sources of which are listed here, retrospectively from the funding sources which are also listed here, pursuant to the Code of Ordinances and for other purposes. Is Mr. Santil here to present? Let me answer this.
I believe his deputy is here, Mr.
Yeah, item 12, 23-01371. The lease of 50 parking spaces. And we can come back to it later in the meeting if need be. All right, let's set this one aside for now and Mushawn. Let's take 13, 15, and 16 as a block. These are councilmember carry forward papers, first of which is 23-013-88, an ordinance by Mr. Hillis authorizing a donation in amount not to exceed $5,000 from the Council District 9 carry forward account to the Grove Park Neighborhood Association to support the Grove Parks Gives Initiative, a program that supports legacy residents of Grove Park and for other purposes. Item 15 is 23-013-92, an ordinance by Mr. Bond authorizing a donation of $1,000 from the Post 1 at-large carry-forward account to the Frederick Douglass High School to support their 23-24 athletic seasons and for other purposes. Item number 16 is 23-013-93, an ordinance by Ms. Norwood authorizing a donation in an amount not to exceed $28,000 from the District 8 carry-forward account to the Atlanta Memorial Park Conservancy and for other purposes. If there's no questions or comments, I will move approval of those three items. Second by Ms. Overstreet. No running. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. Those items are favorable.
All right. Now we backtrack to item 14. This is 23-013-89. This is an ordinance by Shook authorizing the mayor as designee to execute a special procurement agreement with the source indicated here, Dell Marketing Secure Works Services with Dell Marketing LLP on behalf of AIM and Watershed Management pursuant to the code section listed here for term commencing May 5th of 2023 through May 6th of next year with no renewal options in an amount not to exceed $1,701,920.86. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the sources indicated. And we will have to amend in the iPro report, but Mr. Sankey, why don't you go ahead and present?
Good afternoon, Councilmember Shook and members of the Finance Executive Committee. I am Jason Sankey, Chief Information Officer for the city. This contract will provide 24/7 monitoring of our network, as well as several technologies to ensure the security of our network. This previous agreement was signed in October of 2022 as an emergency procurement, and in consultation with the Department of Procurement, we decided to move forward with a special procurement, which resulted in more time needed for this legislation. We have also delivered an RFP package to the Department of Procurement to competitively bid these services beyond this contract.
Ms. Lind, I just wanted to note that the caption, it says Councilmember Shook up there rather than Dustin Hillis. I just wanted to make sure that we caught that to make sure we had the correct council member and quoted.
Thank
That's
you.
all.
We will correct that.
Thank you. And we have to amend in the iPro report. There's a motion to amend by Ms. Bakhtiari, which I will second. It's not pristine, but I don't see any fatal flaws in it. So if there's no questions or comments, let's open that vote to amend, to add in the iPro.
The vote's closed. That's 4 yeas, 0 nays. The amendment is before you.
All right. So the amendment's been approved. I'll make a motion to approve as amended. Second by Ms. Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote's closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. That are favorable as amended.
All right, thank you. We've done 15 and 16. That takes us to 23-013-96. It's an ordinance by Westmoreland, Overstreet, Juan, Faroki, Winston, and Hillis authorizing a donation in the amount not to exceed blank to the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta to support LGBTQ outreach and the Mayor's Youth Scholarship Program and for other purposes. Amendment, is that an amendment?
Yeah.
Okay, well, first of all, we have to adopt the substitute that fills in the correct amount. Ms. Lindo, could you read the substituted caption?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is an ordinance by council members Matt Westmoreland, Marcy Color Overstreet, Alex Vaughn, Amir Faroki, Jason Winston, Andrea Boone, and Dustin Hillis, as substituted by the Finance Executive Committee, authorizing a donation in amount not to exceed $28,000 to the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta to support the LGBTQ outreach and the Mayor's Youth Scholarship Program and for other purposes.
Okay, so the substitute's before us, and then is there a proposed amendment?
Yes. Proposed amendment to add my name, and I will also add an amount to this legislation. Yeah, I'm gonna make it.
Okay, so then, okay.
Don't want to give me a money gun, I'll make it rain.
So then let's accept the substitute, which we haven't done by vote yet, correct? So I'll make a motion to accept the substitute, second by Bakhtiari. So let's go ahead and dispense with that.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. That's 4 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you.
Okay, so then I suppose then that the correct motion would be to send it forward with approval on the condition that Ms. Bakhtiari supply the necessary data so that we can have a substitute that adds her amount, correct? Okay, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second by Ms. Bakhtiari. So let's vote on that.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. This item is 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute on condition.
All right, thank you. 23-0-1397 is an ordinance by Mr. Wan to ratify services rendered in connection with the agreement indicated here. BridgePay Payment Gateway Services for EnerGov with BridgePay Network Solutions, Inc., beginning February 3rd of this year, and to authorize the mayor to execute the First Amendment to the agreement on behalf of Department of Finance, retroactively effective from February 3 of this year on a month-to-month basis for a period not to exceed 23 months with no additional funding and for other purposes. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Lawrence Davis, Jr., Revenue Chief, Office of Revenue. This ordinance before you today is basically asking to amend the BridgePay contract to extend it to a month-to-month, as stated before, from February the 3rd. From February the 3rd, and not to exceed the 23 months. This is what we believe is ample time to complete a new solicitation and execution of a new vendor or extension of this contract with BridgePay upon us getting a new system. The usage of the BridgePay Payment Gateway is a necessary link that we are using right now with the EnerGov platform, which connects the EnerGov platform with the city's bank, Wells Fargo. The original contract did end in February of this year. However, we were unable to submit legislation in a timely manner due to the fact that we were still in negotiations with BridgePay to get to a month-to-month number.
Questions or comments?
50 years.
All right, not the cleanest process here. I'll make a motion to approve, however. Second by Mr. Winston. If there's nothing else, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
The ayes have it, so ordered. Now we'll backtrack to item 12, which we had passed over. I've already read the caption. Is Mr. Santil here? Or someone?
Good afternoon, Councilman Shook and committee. My name is Maurice Jackson. I'm the director of Dean. This ordinance would allow us to enter into a lease agreement with the Georgia Building Authority for 50 spaces at a base rate of $4,000. And that was from the period of March 3rd to June 30th, 2024. And for the ongoing period of July 1st to June 24th, 2024, The base rate would not exceed $12,000.
Questions or comments? I'll make a motion to approve. Second by Mr. Winston. Seeing nothing else, let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote's closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
And I believe you have the next item as well, which is 23-014-04. It's an ordinance by Mr. Lewis authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the city to enter into a First Amendment to the ground lease agreement with Georgia Film and Television Center, LLC, with respect to the lease of certain city-owned property commonly known as the Lakewood Fairgrounds and located at 175 Lakewood Way, Southeast Atlanta, consisting of approximately 30 acres to modify Article 12 and include a new Article 17 to the ground lease agreement, waiving the code section which is indicated here, and for other purposes. So walk us through the changes, please.
All right. This ground lease agreement is the first amendment to an agreement that we have with Georgia Film and Television. And what it does is it's going to modify Article 12 and add a new section 17. There'll be which is assignment and a portion for to modify section 12 to add another section 12C.1.
But what do those changes accomplish?
With those changes, I have a law here that is familiar with the actual changes, if you don't mind.
Good afternoon, Donna Wilson with the Law Department. The main purpose of this First Amendment is to add a provision allowing for leasehold mortgage rights for the tenant. This will allow the existing tenant and subsequent tenants to pursue certain financing options. And then we also need to modify Section 12 to allow for the mortgage rights and make sure that those are not deemed assignment or transfers under the lease.
Thank you. And what are we waiving?
The waiving of the code with respect to having to go out and do competitive bids to go ahead and do lease agreements. Mm-hmm.
Questions or comments? I will move approval. Second by Mr. Winston. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote's closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
Thank you. 23-014-05 is an ordinance by Mr. Amos authorizing the first supplemental indenture of trust to 1, ratify, reaffirm, and supplement A, that certain amended and restated indenture of trust dated November 1 of 2021 relating to, among other things, the city's tax allocation variable rate bonds for the West Side Project, series of which are all indicated here, and that certain first supplemental indenture of trust dated August 30th of this year, which, among other things, 1, authorized amendments which established long-term rate for the Series 2008 bonds. 2, authorized the Chief Financial Officer to accept the terms of the Wells Fargo Bank National Association term sheet with respect to the establishment and resetting the long-term rates for the Series 2008 bonds, and the mandatory tender date for the Series 2008 bonds, and execute all certificates and documents necessary to establish such long-term rate and mandatory tender date. Number 3, to authorize the CFO to negotiate further extensions or rate changes pursuant to the parameters established herein, and execute all certificates and documents necessary to establish such future long-term rates and mandatory tender date. And 4, reaffirming Wells Fargo Bank National Association as remarketing agent with respect to the bonds in connection with such interest rate determinations and for other related purposes. Mr. Knight.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Courtney Knight, Chief of Treasury, Debt and Investments. The city has issued 3 series of bonds for the West Side TAD. They issued bonds in 2001, 2005, and 2008. This matter relates to the bonds issued in 2008. Unlike the bonds that we addressed this morning for the airport, which had a 30-year fixed maturity, these bonds are sold subject to what's called a mandatory tender. And that means every 3 years, we renegotiate the rate set with Wells Fargo, who owns the bonds. So today, we're asking for the ability to reset the rate on September 1st, and we've negotiated a rate with Wells Fargo, which they will set pursuant to an index 3 days prior to September 1st. We're also asking, because this becomes a cumbersome process to come back to council every 3 years just to reset the rate, that the CFO was able to do this administratively so long as the new rate does not exceed the preceding rate by more than 3%, so that we don't have to come back to council for this reset every 3 years.
Questions, comments? Ms. Overstreet.
Just trying to figure out why are we putting both of those actions together? Because it's okay to go ahead on and reset the date, the date 3 days prior to September 1st.
I'll introduce you to our bond counsel from
Okay.
Freeman Law Firm.
Good afternoon, Nicole James Vickers for Johnson and Freeman. We are representing the city as bond counsel. Just as a matter of, because we were already going to reset the rate, we were just asking that, that the city council have the authority to allow the CFO to negotiate on behalf of the city so that we're not coming back and forth every 3 years.
So
we
I'm
believe
not-
that it can be done by the same ordinance.
Okay. So it's not a problem for me for you to come back every 3 years, just so we're clear on that. But I don't have the information that I need to feel comfortable with that, because no one has come to me to ask me how I feel about not weighing in every 3 years. It's not a problem for me to weigh in every 3 years. So I'm not sure if they should be together. Like if the reset that's needed right now
Yeah.
should be with the new purview of a council look.
And that would be fine. This was just a matter of expending city time and money and resources to come back every 3 years. We decided that that would be a good option to put into the ordinance.
Okay.
And that's why we set those parameters, so that you can't go above the 3%, which is about what we're doing now.
Yeah.
From 1.39 to a possible 4.01.
So I will say that this is my first year on finance. I don't know if the readiness to relinquish that is here. I don't know. Howard, Councilmember Shook, you are the veteran here. You tell me your thoughts about this.
This appears to be an efficiency gain for me, but I'll defer to Mr. Bala if he wants to chime in.
Yeah, so just the way that this specific transaction is structured, it's not already set to a standard rate like a SOFR rate, which we already know is variable and structured by the market, and it has that rate already embedded into it. This, for us, is a little bit more of a lift, and if the increase isn't going to be substantial, we were requesting the city have that authority to do it so that we're not expending additional bond counsel, additional fees that come with the whole resetting process to come back legislatively and do these documents. But either way, on council's approval, we can either do it this time or next time, but it does need to move out of committee today because we do have a timeline and a window in which they have to have this rate locked by with Wells Fargo, and so it needs to be approved by next council. So if the will is to move on condition that we move that part of the requirement out, that's okay. We'll just have to revisit it again in 3 years and probably make the same recommendation, or we can take care of it today.
So I didn't see the alarm bell go off when I talked to Howard Shook. And one more question then. Is there usually a huge flux between over 3%? Like, is that customary? Does it happen often?
It depends on over what period of history you're referring to, right? We're in a very strange time over the last couple of years with the level of volatility and the rapid increase of interest rates that's unprecedented in my 40 years in
Understood.
the market. So usually, yes, it would never be the case. But given our recent experience, I can't quite relate to the usual nature of that, you know, because you can't extrapolate history to what happens in future markets because things can go crazy like they have the last couple of years. We do feel that the 3% cap from one period to the next period is reasonable, and if rates on the reset exceed that cap, we have to come back.
Okay. Well, listen, because I do have confidence in this financial team, I mean, I appreciate the work that you all do, and I trust your work. I'm fine with it. I'll be fine.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you, Mr. Knight. One quick question I have is around fees for the renegotiation for every time we do this. Can you walk us through that just a little bit? I'm just curious if it doesn't seem like it's advantageous for us to negotiate a longer maturity date, but I'm also curious of what that means from a fee standpoint.
Yeah, it's not only the administrative cost of our team and the debt team and the CFO and finance, but there are explicit costs, those for the attorneys, the trustee, that we would avoid if this was an automatic reset every 3 years.
Makes sense to continue to look at it this even because of the market uncertainty in the future that we could.
With that cap, we feel like we're pretty safe. If it exceeds that, we have to come back.
Anyway.
All right, thank you.
I mean, I do have to say I applaud Ms. Overstreet's wanting to measure, twice before cutting once, lest we inadvertently give up something that we later come to realize we wish we hadn't. And I think that should always be kind of a guiding question for us. But it appears everything is, the pathway is clear for this, so I'll go ahead and move approval. Second by Mr. Winston, so let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
Item 21 as a substitute, but I believe the caption is the same. And this is 23-01408, an ordinance by Mr. Winston and Mr. Farocki to waive the code section indicated here to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement with Civic Trust LLC to administer the 2023 District 2 Participatory Budgeting Program in an amount not to exceed $40,000, all contracted services to be charged to and paid from the Moving Atlanta Forward District 2 Discretionary Vertical Fund accounts listed herein and for other purposes. I will move that we bring forward a substitute which adds more detailed account information in Section 2, and that has been seconded by Ms. Bakhtiari. So let's open the procedural vote to bring the substitute forward. Okay.
We can do it. Was there a second, Mr. Chair?
Ms. Bakhtiari.
Thank you. The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you.
So just a procedural note, Mr. Winston is co-sponsoring this with Mr. Farocki because Mr. Farocki was on city business out of the country at the meeting, and so per our rules, if you're going to read in legislation and you're not there, someone else has to add their name to the caption. So, did you want to amend your name?
Yeah, I'd like to amend to remove my name from the.
All right, a motion by Mr. Winston to remove his name, and that's been seconded by Ms. Bakhtiari. So let's open that motion. Open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. That's 4 yeas, 0 nays. That item's been amended.
All right, I will now make a motion to approve on substitute as amended. There's a second by Mr. Winston, so let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote's closed. That's 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute as amended.
Thank you. We're just like that. We're to resolutions. Number 23R3852 is a resolution by Mr. Bond authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement with the source indicated here, Background and Recruitment Digital Media Services with Pivot Path LLC on behalf of APD for a term of 3 years and an amount not to exceed $500,000 with 2 one-year renewal options. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the sources indicated. And I was showing Mr. Amon, but please come on up and walk us through it.
I am no substitute for Mr. Amon. But thank you for your time and consideration. This is vitally important to the police department for our recruiting effort. This will enable us to engage a firm that can do research, can create content, and can expand our marketing capacity as we do a good deal of marketing in the state and out of the state.
Thank you. And I'll make a motion to amend in the iPro report, which it's not completely perfect, but the department has adequately answered the concerns listed, and there's a second by Ms. Overstreet. So let's go ahead and open the vote on amending into the iPro report.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? The vote's closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The amended item is before you.
Make a motion to approve as amended. Second by Ms. Overstreet. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote's closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable as amended.
All right, the next item is, we have a substitute. Is the caption the same?
Mr. Chair, it changes the caption to insert the amount of the refund.
All right, so I'll make a motion to bring forward, well, let me read the proposed substitute caption. This is 23R3854, resolution by Juan, substituted by Finance Exec, authorizing the CFO to refund customers for overpayments to water sewer accounts in the amount of $6,605.39. All funds to be charged to and paid from the sources indicated. So I'll move to bring that substitute forward. Second by Ms. Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you.
All right, this is our off-the-rack overpayment legislation. I'll move approval on substitute. Second by Ms. Bakhtiari.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable on substitute.
Thank you. 23R3860 is a resolution by Ms. Waits urging the Georgia General Assembly to amend the chapter and title of the official Georgia Code indicated here relating to inmate policies so as to ban the use of solitary confinement or prohibit the practice of placing an inmate in solitary confinement for more than 5 consecutive days in a 60-day period and for other purposes. Well, speaking for myself, I don't feel like I'm enough of a subject matter expert in any of the requisite, prison administration, mental health, law enforcement, criminology, or any of the above. So I'd love to get a little more. I'd like to hear a little something about this.
Seeing
experts
that our sponsor, I don't know if anyone's here to talk about it, but I don't believe the sponsor is here. Can we hold and ask her to make a, motion to hold?
All right, motion to hold by Bakhtiari, second by Winston. If there's no questions or comments, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item will be held.
Ms. Linda, would you mind making a note to make a formal request to the sponsor to please come and speak to it in the coming committee meetings?
Yes, Councilmember, will do.
Thank you so much.
Okay, that takes us to 23R 3864, resolution by Ms. Boone authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the Second Amendment to the agreement which is indicated here. This is citywide security guard services with dynamic and safeguard security on behalf of the mayor's Office of Emergency Preparedness to add additional funding for the Department of Watershed in an amount not to exceed $550,000. All contracted work being charged to and paid from, etc.
Good afternoon. I'm Andre Kearns with the Mayor's Office of Emergency Preparedness. The purpose of this legislation is to amend the agreement for the citywide security guard services, in which security guard services are provided to the Department of Watershed Management, Department of Parks and Recreations, Department of Enterprise Assets Management. The current agreement provides 24-hour manned services for various facilities for the departments mentioned. This contract base rate did not increase and adds the physical commitment for the 72 Marietta location. The contract amount is for $550,000. This amendment adds the funding stream for the Department of Watershed Management Office of Safety, Security, and Emergency Management. Lastly, this agreement would be in effect until the execution of the security agreement for Watershed.
Questions or comments from my colleagues? It's a motion to approve by Ms. Overstreet, second by Ms. Bakhtiari. Do you have a question?
Yeah, is security going to help with the geese? Yeah?
We'll stand by.
Okay.
Well, you know, we pay a vendor to take care of that. All right, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. It's 4 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
All right, this brings us to 23R 3866. This is a resolution by Finance Exec to amend the resolution 23R 3238, which authorized the mayor or his designee to execute the agreement which is indicated here, Health Center Management of the On-Site Employee Wellness Center on behalf of HR to reflect the correct amount payable by the City of Atlanta for the initial term, such that it shall be an amount not to exceed $2,840,882.64 annually, all work to be charged to and paid from, etc. So who gets to explain this one?
That would be me. Good afternoon, Chair Shook and committee members. Anthony Roberts, Deputy Commissioner of Human Resources. The purpose of the legislation is to correct the previously adopted dollar amount of term covered for the Wellness Center Management by Kaiser Permanente and Everside Health of Georgia.
And what was the nature of the original math mistake?
It was just an oversight and failure to update the amount when they were using the template previously.
Well, it confused monthly with annual, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Well, that's a pretty big mistake, eh?
It is.
And nobody caught it? I mean, the mistake is one thing. What bothers me is that there's supposed to be a lot of hands-on and eyes-on things like this to make sure mistakes like this don't survive. They're going to be made, but they need to be weeded out.
Agreed. It went through review with Human Resources, wasn't caught there, procurement and law. At the time of contract administration is when it was caught by the law department.
Anyone else? I mean, this is the kind of thing that drives me nuts, because I've been here maybe too long. But there's some things that should have been, you know, we pay a fortune for all these systems, and we pay a lot of money to nicely pay people to manage these systems. I just don't understand how something like this can happen.
I agree. All we can say is we will, look at it harder and try to do better.
Well, in my view, I mean, look, we need to pay for the service.
Correct.
So I'm going to vote for this, but I'm probably going to continue to ask questions about this offline.
Understood.
I'm going to let someone else make the motion in a second. Motion to approve by Overstreet. Is there a second? second by Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
Thank you. $23R 3867 is a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the CFO to refund $8,232 to Inline Communities LLC for the purpose of refunding the overpayment of their 2022 occupation tax, all funds being charged to and paid from, etc. Do we need to hear a presentation about this?
Mr. Chair, if I may, you may consider taking items 27 and 28 together. They're both for refunds.
Excellent. 23R 3868 is a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the CFO to refund $8,219.90 to Light Networks LLC for the purpose of refunding overpayment of their 2021 occupation tax, all funds being charged to and paid from, et cetera. Let's take those both. What you see is what you get. I will second Mr. Winston's motion to approve both items.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. Those items are favorable.
All right, if it's all right with the committee, let's take 29 and 36 together as they both require substitutes to correct funding stream infirmities. First of which is 23R 3869, resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor or his designee to issue the task order indicated here to pay for license fees for the Department of Watershed Management Stonewall restroom renovations under the contract number indicated here. Consulting services with Gordian Group Inc. on behalf of Enterprise Assets Management in an amount not to exceed $19,697.92. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the sources indicated. And there's a substitute. Is the caption the same for the substitute? It should be correct. Yeah. All right. This, let me read the other caption. And then I'll read, and the substitute for that will also have the same caption, and that is 36, 23R 3876, resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor as designee to issue a task order, the number of which is indicated for the contract indicated job order contracting services small with Rubio and Sons Interiors, Inc. for the Department of Watershed Management Stonewall Facility restroom renovations in an amount not to exceed $429,148.58. And go ahead and tell us about these.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, council members. I'm Director Ron Horizon for the Office of Facilities Management in the Department of Watershed. The purpose of this legislation is to add construction services and funding to these two task orders at Stonewall for bathroom renovations. So scope of work includes demolition and reconstruction of the men's and women's bathrooms, so replacing flooring, wall, ceiling tiles, urinals, toilets, mirrors, sinks, showers, and lockers. So complete renovation, and that's to bring these restrooms up to acceptable standards.
Thank you, and I'll make a motion at this time to bring forward the substitute for both items. Second by Mr. Winston, and the substitutes in each case correct the funding stream data. So we've got a motion and a proper second, so let's open the vote on bringing these two substitutes in front of us.
The vote is open. The vote's closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. Those items have been substituted.
Questions or comments about these two substitutes? I'll make a motion to approve both of them. Second by Mr. Winston. Seeing no objections, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote's closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. Those items are favorable on substitute.
Thank you. And now we're going to, unless there's an objection, take 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35 as a block. They all deal with task orders. First of which is 23R3870, resolution by Finance Exec, authorizing the mayor or his designee to issue task order, number of which is indicated here, to pay for license fees for Fire Station 4 repairs and renovations under the contract, which is indicated here, with the Gordian Group, Inc., on behalf of Enterprise Assets Management in an amount not to exceed $13,907.63. 31 is 23R3871, a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor designee to issue the task order, number of which is indicated, to pay for license fees for the Public Safety Annex generator upgrades on the contract number indicated. Again, with Gordian Group on behalf of Enterprise Assets Management in an amount not to exceed $31,918.95. Item 32 is 23R3872, resolution by Finance Exec, authorizing the mayor as designated to issue task order, for number of which is indicated, to pay for license fees for multiple facility HVAC control systems, Phase 4, under the contract indicated, again with Gordian Group, Inc., on behalf of Enterprise Assets Management in an amount not to exceed $21,733.79. Item 33 is 23R3873, resolution by Finance Exec, authorizing the mayor or his designee to issue task order, which is indicated here, for the contract, which is indicated here, job order contract services small with Beatty Construction, Inc., for Fire Station 4 repairs and renovations on behalf of Enterprise Assets Management in an amount not to exceed $302,998.58. 34 is 23R3874, resolution by Finance Exec, authorizing the mayor's designee to issue the task order, which is indicated here, for the contract, number of which is indicated here, job order contracting services small with F.H. Passion, S.N. Nielsen and Associates, LLC, for multiple facility HVAC control system, Phase 4, on behalf of DEAM in an amount not to exceed $473,503. And lastly, number 35 is 23R3875, resolution by Finance Exec, authorizing the mayor as designee to issue task order, number of which is indicated, for the contract indicated, job order contracting services with F.H. Passion and S.N. Nielsen and Associates, LLC, for the Public Safety Annex generator upgrades on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Assets Management, an amount not to exceed $695,402 to be charged and paid from, etc. Does anyone have any questions or comments about any or all of these proposed task orders? Is there a motion? Motion to approve by Winston, second by Overstreet. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote's closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. These items are favorable.
Okay, we have a substitute. Okay, and it does change the caption. Let me read the caption of the proposed substitute for 23R3877. This is a substitute resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor to execute the Sixth Amendment for the FC indicated. This is heating and air conditioning services with ARS Mechanical LLC to add additional funding for the HVAC repairs at various facilities on behalf of Enterprise Assets Management and the Department of Parks and Rec in an amount not to exceed $1,060,000. All contracted work being charged to and paid from, etc. So go ahead and give us the presentation.
Well, the purpose of this legislation is to authorize the Sixth Amendment to the HVAC contract, FC 106070, heating and air conditioning services. I think Parks is here. This is sort of a late-minute request to add some money, but mainly it was to do some repair work at Georgia Hill. A lot of the AC is not working properly, so we got to replace some VAV valves. Also to do some work at the fire stations. to replace some of their heating and air conditioning services, and to use the other portion of the money for just various facilities. And if Parks is here, I don't see anyone. They can speak to the other portion of that.
Okay, thank you. And while he's approaching, the nature of the substitute is by adding Parks as a user, it increases the total amount.
Hi, Henry Thompson with Parks and Rec. So we're adding funding out of our park improvement fund to cover various HVAC needs across the rec centers. Of course, we have 30 plus rec centers that we deal with. At any given time, especially with the heating situation we're in now, we have a lot of HVAC systems that usually go down. We have some that are currently in need of repair, and so those funds support those.
I'm looking for the list of the facilities that we will be updating with the HVAC, Parks and Recs, as well as our fire stations. I don't see them. Are they attached anywhere here? Yes. Yes, please. I need to see that list.
All right, any other questions?
So I guess move approval on condition.
Well, have we brought the substitute before us yet? No.
Does the substitute
I'll make
have-
that motion. Second by Winston. Procedural motion to bring the substitute formally before us.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you.
So, Ms. Overstreet, then is the proper motion to send this forward favorably on condition of receiving
Providing the list, yes.
the project detail?
Project details, yes.
Okay, I'll take that as a second to my original motion.
Yes.
So let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable on substitute on condition.
Thank you. 23R 3878 is a resolution by Finance authorizing the award of the bid for the purchase of the City of Atlanta's interest in certain properties located at Avondale, thank you. I've heard of it. Avenue and Lester Avenue, Southeast Atlanta, Georgia, having tax parcel identifications numbers, which are all conveniently listed here, to United Multifamily Owner LLC, to authorize the sale and conveyance of the aforementioned properties, to authorize the mayor to execute quitclaim deeds, to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute and or deliver all other documents necessary to complete the sale and transfer of the aforementioned properties and for other purposes. Go ahead, Mr. Butts.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Shook, members of the council. I am Marcus Butts, Director of Office of Engineering Services for the Department of Watershed Management. The purpose of the matter before you is to award the bid to the selected bidder for the surplus properties at Avondale and Lester Avenue. The properties were formally declared as surplus real property pursuant to Ordinance 22-0-1772, which was adopted by the council on November 7, 2022, and approved per City Charter Section 2-403. It was determined that the properties are no longer needed or useful to the system, and it was desirable for the city to sell the properties pursuant to the competitive sealed bid process. The Department of Procurement advertised for receipt of sealed bids for the property from May 22nd, 2023 to June 20th, and through the Chief Procurement Officer obtained sealed appraisal for the property that was completed by an independent state-certified general appraisal, who determined the value to be $556,300. The highest responsible bid was submitted by United Multifamily Owner, LLC, in an amount $575,000. This concludes my remarks. I'm happy to address any questions.
Mr. Winston.
Thank you. Mr. Butts, it's been a long time coming to see this day.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to personally thank you for your hard work. Just so my colleagues know, this was an abandoned building that Watershed Management owned, old chlorine plant in District 1 that was adjacent to what's coming, the Beltline. And so the community was very much behind getting rid of what was an abandoned building. And the plus side of this is that we're going to add more affordable housing units in District 1 because of this project. And so I just want to personally thank you, everyone in procurement who worked on this, for making this happen. So thank you.
Thank you for your support. I'll second that. Any questions or comments? Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
All right, that takes us to 23-0-1385. I will read the caption of the proposed substitute, which is lengthy as it's a bond paper. Well, no, it's not. Authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement on behalf of the City of Atlanta with the City of Atlanta Urban Development Corporation, granting that corporation an option to purchase certain properties owned by the city in connection with the development of affordable housing on publicly owned land, including certain parcels which are listed here, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with that corporation governing the development of affordable housing on surplus properties, authorizing the CFO or his designee to make payment to the corporation from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, an amount not to exceed $3 million, and to reserve an amount not to exceed $1 million in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to support AUDC in connection with the implementation of the Affordable Housing Strike Force, focused on expediting the development of affordable housing on publicly owned land pursuant to the IGA, authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute all other documents necessary to consummate the transaction authorized herein and for other purposes.
Hey everyone, I'm Josh Humphreys in the mayor's office. I'm not quite sure what's going on up there, but I'll briefly talk about this paper and kind of the purpose behind it. Just for a little bit of context, the Atlanta Urban Development Corporation is really an outgrowth of the work of the Mayor's Housing Strike Force to develop publicly owned land for affordable housing. And we've been working for the last few months with the Atlanta Housing Organization to create this as a subsidiary of the Housing Authority. And in doing so, it allows it to operate with some state powers that housing authorities also have that help you build more affordable housing. And really the goal with this for us is to focus on mixed income housing on these sites. So I think it will have some affordable housing. It'll also have some market rate housing. And it builds on an international housing model that uses the market rate housing to actually, oh, hello? There you go. Okay. That uses the market rate housing within the project actually cross-subsidized, so it allows for there to be affordable housing permanently on the deal, but it's structured in a more kind of like with a longer horizon view on it. So this would authorize the city to enter into an IGA and to move 4 properties that we've identified to be the first batch on this, and some initial seed funding both at the city, because the city staff is helping kind of get this up and going, as well as funding for the first couple of years to do due diligence work and make sure we've got the right contracts and stuff for community engagement otherwise, so that really, I mean, our goal is to make it, to remove as many barriers as we can, right? Whether it's like entitlement barriers or brownfield environmental barriers or otherwise on the site, so that they can be best positioned to be developed quickly. So that's what this paper would allow to do. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? All right, we have a motion from Overstreet, second by Winston. This looks like a great project. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. That item is favorable.
On substitute, that takes us to item 40, 23-0-1401. This is an ordinance by Mr. Dozier, authorizing the CFO to amend the Tree Trust Fund budget and the FY 2024 Department of Parks and of $995,942 from the Tree Trust Fund to the FY 2024 budget of Parks and Rec to fund the planting and maintenance of trees improvements to the urban forest and community education in the city of Atlanta and for other purposes.
Good afternoon. Good to see half of you again. Sorry for the repeat speech. My name is Taryn Heidel. I'm the Senior Arborist for the Department of Parks and Recreation. So this proposed ordinance 23-0-1401 would transfer funding for another year of urban forestry services under an existing community-based forestry contract from the Tree Trust Fund to DPR. Resolution 23R3859 that went through Community Development and Human Services Committee yesterday would amend the current contract to add another year of volunteer tree planting, tree care, and educational training for the public. This will continue the 20 years of community-based forestry services Trees Atlanta has completed with the Department of Parks and Recreation using the Tree Trust Fund. This contract focuses on merging urban forestry work and urban forestry education by completing all work using volunteers and providing urban forestry education for all ages. Engaging communities via volunteer opportunities and education builds stewardship for this living infrastructure to fill maintenance gaps and keeps costs below market value. This one-year amendment includes the following. 2,800 trees will be planted in all 12 city council districts during the dormant season, which is October 2023 to March 2024. Locations will be determined using the 2018 Urban Tree Canopy Assessment, the most recent one that we have currently, as well as the 2023 Atlanta Heat and Flood Risk Assessment completed by Urban Adapt, along with community engagement to ensure we are working to achieve our 50% tree canopy goal and prioritizing heat vulnerable communities. Trees should ideally be ordered from nurseries from midsummer to early fall, so we're really pushing the envelope here timing-wise to ensure high-quality trees of diverse species in time for planting. These new trees will be maintained and warranted for 2 years after planting. An additional 500 trees 3 to 10 years old will receive structural pruning to ensure visibility, maintain ADA accessibility, and improve the future health of young trees. And finally, the urban forestry education component outside of the volunteer projects includes 8 pruning classes, 2 volunteer certification courses covering invasive plant removal and tree care, 11 speaker series taught by urban forestry experts, 8 guided tree walks, 200 public school classroom visits, and 8 paid summer jobs for high school students. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I feel compelled to make some comments that from time to time I have to make. I look forward to the day when every penny goes to planting trees instead of being siphoned off for reasons other than planting trees. I sat down a couple of years ago and went back over about 5 years of these ordinances, and then I figured out how many trees we didn't plant. It's thousands. Are we ever going to get there? I mean, everyone knows education about trees. Everyone knows 2 things. Everyone knows smoking is bad for you, and everyone knows trees are good for you. Right?
I would argue that education is also good for you. But also educating about the urban forest is kind of necessary to make up that maintenance gap. And without that kind of spreading that education, we have issues with people not wanting trees planted on their streetscapes, in their yards, in their parks. So I really think that that helps us in the future have healthy urban forests and plant more trees in the future.
I don't buy it. You do realize how many trees aren't getting planted because of this, right?
I do know, I understand your concern, but I've also seen the advocacy work and the education that leads to more volunteers that allows more tree planting firsthand.
I'm also hearing some rumbling from some kind of mainstream, environmental organizations that some of them are getting less and less happy with diverting these resources instead of planting trees. I'll stop. Ms. Overstreet.
Thank you, Vice Chair Shook. So I wasn't gonna, weigh in. I do agree that education is important, but just not from this fund. It's really the origin of the funding that's a problem for me. However, I'm going to be a team player.
So am I, but someone else is going to have to make the motion in the second.
So I'm not going to be that person.
Nope.
Okay.
All right, motion to approve by Winston, pulled out of the fire by Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote and send this to the consent agenda. And we'll
The vote is open.
check on my mood Monday.
Yeah.
If you want to win him over, just bring like a 100-gallon
Vote's
tree
closed.
to City Hall.
Oh,
Leave it
I'll
right outside
try.
his office.
4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
Thank you so much for your time.
All right, it's on the consent agenda. Thank you. Where are we, Ms. Lindo?
Mr. Chair, we're up to item held. We begin with item number 53.
Thank you. Which is 23-0-1126. This is an ordinance by Ms. Bakhtiari and Mr. Wan to provide for the annexation of property located at 2018 Flat Shoals Road, Atlanta, Georgia, 30316, into the corporate limits of the city of Atlanta pursuant to the 100% method to extend the boundaries of the Atlanta Independent School System, to notify DCA of the annexation and for other purposes. And there's a motion to approve by Bakhtiari, second by Overstreet. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote's closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
And item, okay, item 57, correct? That is when we have a substitute for it. Let me read the substituted caption. The proposed substituted caption. This is 23-0-1187, a substitute ordinance by Finance Exec to amend 14626 of the City Code to set the ad valorem tax rate for the general levy, bonded indebtedness levy, parks levy, education levy, special tax district levy, and the Atlanta Beltline Special Services District levy based on every $1,000 or part thereof of the value of all real estate, real and personal property, to provide that the tax rates established herein shall remain fixed until amended or repealed, to repeal ordinance 23-0-1154 and for other purposes. So motion to bring forward the substitute with the caption I just read, second by Winston. So let's go ahead and dispense with that procedural vote.
The vote is open. The vote's closed. The substitute is before you.
Lawrence Davis, Jr., Revenue Chief for the Office of Revenue. The purpose of the substitute ordinance before you this afternoon is to request the adoption of the final tax digest on Monday, August the 21st by City Council. In accordance with the state law, the Office of Revenue has already had the final millage rates published through the AJC on Monday, August the 14th. Those rates that were published were the general operating levy at 8.52 mils, the bond levy at 1.88 mils, parks levy at 1 mil, the special tax district library levy at 0.826 mils, the Atlanta Public School System on Monday, the Atlanta Public School Board, on Monday, August the 14th, published through their public hearing their millage rate, their millage rate for the upcoming year, which was at 20.500 mils. The Atlanta Beltline Special Service District is at 200 mils, for your knowledge. Upon adoption of this substitute ordinance on Monday, the city will amend the City Code Section 146-26B through G to reflect the final millage rate and appeal the ordinance number 23-0-1154.
Questions or comments? Chair calls for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Winston. Second by Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable on substitute.
Thank you. What else do we have on our agenda, Ms. Lindo?
Mr. Chair, we have item number 65 from the held.
And we have a substitute. Let me read the caption of the proposed substitute. This is 23R 3762. It's a resolution by Ms. Overstreet, is substituted by FEC, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a cooperative purchase agreement, which is indicated here, property appraisal validation services with Execute Information Systems, LLC, pursuant to the code section indicated here, utilizing United States General Services Administration contract, number of which is listed, on behalf of Department of Finance for a term of 1 year with 2 one-year renewal options in an amount not to exceed $192,658.30 for the initial term, and an amount not to exceed $120,000 for each renewal term. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the accounts listed. Thank you. Go ahead.
Lawrence Davis Jr., Revenue Chief for the Office of Revenue. As stated, we are requesting authorization to execute a co-op agreement with the Executive Information Systems, LLC, who is the exclusive holder of the SAS Schedule 70 contract. And that contract, it is a SAS software, which is a AI machine learning tool that will be utilized for us to validate the assessments from the county for residential and commercial properties.
First, we didn't carry the vote to bring forward the substitute, so I'll make that motion. Second by Bakhtiari. So let's carry that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before you.
Questions or comments? Motion to approve by Overstreet, second by Winston. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable on substitute.
Can we go home now?
That concludes the legislative items, Mr.
Does
Chair.
anyone have any announcements for the good of the order? All right, thank you, and thank everyone for your patience today. We are adjourned.